You're listening to the Next Level Construction Management Podcast, celebrating unapologetic greatness, proudly promoting meritocracy, and daring to be different by design. Here's your host, Rob Crum, ready to take your construction management performance to the next level.
Welcome back to the Next Level Construction Management Podcast, taking your construction management performance to the next level. All right, today I have a success tip for everyone. It's actually two things that successful people do that less successful people don't do. I'll explain on this week's episode next.
All
right, episode 7, diving right in. What are the two things that successful people do that less successful people don't do? Number 1, they do things now. They don't put things off till later. They don't say things like, I'll circle back to that, and that's good enough. They look at and determine if the task is just a task or if it is actually comprised of a primary task and ancillary tasks. And if it's the latter, they make it a best practice to not only complete the primary task at the process level, but then also complete those ancillary tasks to that level as well. Those ancillary tasks are the ones that the average person looks at and says, I'll do that later, or I'll circle back to that. Let me give you a few examples of what I'm talking about. But first, let's get the corporate disclaimer out of the way. The opinions expressed on this podcast are mine and mine alone, and do not represent those of any current or former employers. Okay, example 1. This one's going to be regarding submittals. Now, let's say you receive a return submittal back from the design team. And for the sake of the example, we'll say it's an appliance submittal. But this will be true of most submittals you process. Okay, so it's returned to you. What are the typical steps needed to get that task done? Input the return status, approved as noted, etc. Put that in your database, generate the cover sheet, and then send it to the subcontractor and field staff. Fair enough. But those are just the basic steps to complete the primary task. But successful people see beyond that primary task and realize that there are ancillary tasks, and the best time to fully complete them is now, while you're already invested and engaged in it. So what are those tasks? Before I answer that, quick question. That appliance submittal will have an O&M manual and a factory warranty, right? Well, one thing that I highly recommend to everyone, and it's part of my best practice, is to start your closeout manual at the beginning of the project. For one very big reason, much of the information that you'll be including in your closeout manual, you'll actually start to accumulate that information at the beginning of the project. So, tying this back into our example, since both that appliance's O&M manual and product warranty will be added to the closeout manual, why not add it when the appliance submittal is returned? Frankly, if the appliance submittal matches per plans and specs, you can do this as you're processing it and sending the submittal to the design team. But at a minimum, when it is returned, this is the time you want to do this. But Rob, we don't get that information typically with the submittal, and the hard copies are provided when the appliance is delivered to the job site. So how are we supposed to add it to the closeout manual when the submittal is returned and the appliance isn't even ordered, much less delivered to the job site? Fair enough. Let me make 2 points about that question. First, what typically happens to the O&M manual when it gets provided when the appliance is delivered? Does it carefully get removed and placed safely in an organized field file cabinet? Or is it set aside to be given to the office staff upon their next visit? No, it gets fucking lost. And if you're saying this doesn't happen, you are lying. And even if you are the exception and you take it out, you put it aside, how do owners typically want the closeout manuals now? The old closeout binder with hard copies or electronically? They may still want the hard copy via a binder or some other method, but that's not always the case. But it's almost 100% of the time nowadays that an electronic copy is required. So, the manual, it normally comes in one of those plastic sleeves when the appliance gets delivered, right? Okay. So how are you getting that into your electronic O&M? Are you going to take that back to your office and scan each side of every page of it? I mean, you're not. That is absolutely ridiculous. All right, let's bring this whole thing back together now. So the submittal comes back approved. That's what I'm going to be releasing the sub on. Primary task, process the submittal. We've already discussed what those steps are, so we'll skip repeating that. But then you'll want to knock out those ancillary tasks, including updating the closeout manual with the O&M manual and manufacturer warranty. Oh, while you're at it, go ahead and update your procurement log as well with all that applicable information. But for the closeout manual, go to your favorite search engine, look up the manufacturer and then the material. I'd say almost 100% of the time, you'll be able to find the O&M and the warranty information within 2 minutes on the website. Download it, put it in your electronic closeout folder, update your table of contents, and be done with it. Do it now. How about an RFI? I actually just went through this process the other day with a project engineer. The RFI response came back, and what does the average person do to say it's done? Honestly, I'd say 50% of the time, they'll just save whatever the designer sent them as a PDF in the file folder and then forward that to the subcontractor and field staff. And that's if they even save it in the folder. Another 25% of the time, they may go through the arduous effort of opening the database and typing in the return date and noting the RFI is closed. And the remaining 25%, here the response will actually be typed in the database in that section. All that being said, there are few times where all of these very basic steps are completed together. But Team GSD knows that all of these steps, typing in the response in that section of the database, adding the response date, noting it as closed, saving the cover sheet and adding the return response together, and sending it to the subcontractor and field is the process level of completing that primary task. How about those ancillary tasks? For myself, right now I'm using an Excel RFI log. So next, let's go ahead and update that log and include that response date and changing the status to closed. Another question, is there any component to the response that requires pricing? If so, go to your cost management log and create a line item for the RFI and send it out for pricing and start that process. For me, I use an EW log, extra work log. So I'll open that log, give the RFI an EW number, highlight the trades I'm sending it to and potentially expecting costs from, and then create a folder for it. So when the pricing is sent to me from the subs, I already have a place to save the received emails and proposals. Moving on. Right along with starting the closeout manual at the beginning of the project as a best practice, guess when it's best practice to set up your as-built drawings? You got it, at the beginning of the project as well. That's right. So, in alignment with this example, when an RFI response comes back that updates some component of the drawings, a floor plan, section, detail, all of the above, bingo, go to the electronic as-built and update them. Do it now. I'll do that later. I'll get to that later. Successful people do it now. If there's an opportunity to do it while you're in it, while you're engaged, do it. Less successful people, they don't do that. They push it off. They put it off. They say they'll come back to it later. Why? Probably because they're always trying to hurry up and say something is done. They're always trying to do the least amount possible. They haven't learned, nor do they want to learn, the benefits of this different approach. And that is the best news in the world for you, for us. Successful people are not concerned with doing less. So that goes right into the second part of this tip. Successful people are willing to do more. We understand that there's a price to pay for success, and we're willing to ante up and pay it. We're not concerned with trying to do less. Just the thought of doing less than what's required, frankly, pisses us off. Good enough is not good enough. Our standard is above that. It is not acceptable for us to go, oh, I'll get to that later. We're in it. We're engaged. Our standard is to do it now, even and especially when that requires doing more. We just have a higher standard for what is acceptable. Walking away from it incomplete when there's still something else that could be completed is not acceptable. It's just not. We're not going to be happy until the task is fully completed. It's not done until it's done. And what are the benefits that I said the average person hasn't nor wants to learn from this approach? Well, the examples I discussed related to closeout manuals and as-built, both of those have to be provided when? To the owner. At the beginning, middle, and yes, at the end of the job. So, as we previously discussed on another episode, typically the life cycle of projects, you know, one in the middle, one in the beginning, one at the end, kind of overlapping. So if you're finishing up this project, there's a high likelihood that you're starting another project. Now, if you make it, as you should, a best practice to give a large portion of your time to the project starting, are you going to have the available time to go back through and do all of these closeout manual tasks and update the as-built? No, not a chance. But you're contractually required to submit them. So you're either going to have to put off getting the new job started correctly and dedicate the majority of your time to get this done correctly, or submit a piece of shit that'll probably get sent back anyways, and you'll end up having to dedicate that time regardless. Either way, you won't have the time available to set the new job up correctly. Downward spiral. Or do it now and do more. Substantially less time is needed to finish up the closeout manual and as-built, which then gives you the required time to spend on getting the new project set up for success. Upward spiral. And so those are the two things to think about as you start your day. And as you're going through your tasks, ask yourself, is there anything more that needs to be done with this task? And start to reset your standard so that whatever those additional things are that maybe could be done later, no. Reset your standard to where they get done now. And let that become your acceptable level of task completion. Tell that little voice whispering in your head, it's okay to do it later, to do less, that it's good enough now. Tell that voice to shut the fuck up. Okay, thanks everyone for your continued support, and please send any questions, comments, feedback to comments.nextlevelmanagement@gmail.com. Also, please find Next Level Construction Management with Rob Crum on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and please give the show a follow. Another reminder, all episodes are now up on YouTube, Rumble, and Spotify. And as always, if you could, please share or repost the videos and reels. This does really help the show grow. Okay, thanks everyone. God bless America. And as always, Team GSD, be relentless.
Thank you for watching the Next Level Construction Management Podcast.